I still, to this day, bring pictures home to my wife, Nancy, who's been with me since prior to me getting in a trade. And I show off pictures to her of, new things I'm doing, and I still get excited about it.
Yeah. So hopefully when you're done here today, you're going to know what it means to be an electrician, what kind of work you might confront, what kind of personalities you might have to deal with, how much you might make, how long you'll have to work before you make that money, and whether or not it's going to tear your body up. And Kevin, you've done enough electrical work over the last 36 years that I think you're qualified to speak to at least part of this, right?
I hope so.
All right. So let's just start with this. What kind of electrical work have you done and where? Just kind of boil it down. Residential, commercial, industrial, up on the moon. Where did you do it? Talk to us about that.
Started in this trade in California in 1989, doing residential work, track houses. Did that for maybe 4 years there.
Started green right there in the track.
Green with my brother-in-law.
Okay.
I was his helper.
Okay.
And then I was a helper for a while, and then I got into the electrical apprenticeship program in Southern California.
Okay.
And turned out, when I moved to Oregon, I challenged the test in 94.
Okay, now just a second. Tell these people what turned out means.
Turned out, I tested and got my journeyman's card,
okay,
my license for general journeyman.
You made the transition. You turned from being an apprentice to being a journeyman.
Correct.
Okay.
After I had enough hours in my apprenticeship program to challenge the test up here because I moved from state to state.
I see.
And so I got my journeyman license in Oregon in 94.
Okay.
And hired on with a local contractor. Worked there for 27 years.
Okay. And including on a couple of my jobs.
Yes, a number of them.
Long ago.
Long ago.
Yeah.
So,
and then the contractor you worked for, you also ended up doing some commercial and some industrial?
I did, yeah, residential, commercial, and industrial, you're right.
Okay.
So I did that for a number of years, for 9 years with that contractor, then moved into estimating and project management.
Okay.
For 18 years.
Into the office, baby.
Correct. And then I would go out in the field. I'd also work in the field as needed if we were shorthanded or, whatever reason. I was still in the field somewhat, but majority of it, you're right, in the office, out on jobs estimating.
So I remember that because once you made that transition, I would call the office and I'd talk to you. And then sometimes if the guys were behind you, you would show up, put your tools on, and jump in and push the program ahead.
And I like that.
It was impressive.
Getting out of
yeah.
I like getting out of the office.
Yeah, cool. So Southern California, big heavy work down there or just strictly residential?
No, it started out residential. When I got into the apprenticeship program, I worked on industrial jobs mostly. Power plant, one of the jobs.
Okay.
Detention center, Southern California, was a big job. Hospital job.
Boy, so that's not just poking holes in studs and running Romex, is it?
Right, it was a different world for me.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah, I did that in the balance of my time down there. Came up here, started with that contractor, and then did all three aspects as well.
Okay, and 18 years from the top, helping the guys do the work.
Yeah.
And now, tell us what you're doing here.
It's like I've come full circle. I'm back out in the field now working, actually not in the private sector.
Quasi-private, quasi-governmental.
Yes, governmental project. So, and this point in my career, it's nice to, I liked what I was doing before, the project management, the estimating. There's a certain stress level that comes with that.
Yeah.
Or it can with people. I was usually pretty chill, and I'm a pretty chill person, I believe.
Yeah.
But it was time for me to, I guess, like I said, come back where I'm at, and I work out in the field all the time now.
Doing a wide variety of things.
Yes.
From light fixing to installing to estimating and material takeoff and scheduling deliveries, the whole skill set.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's the thing, as you listen to this, young people, recognize that at a later point in your life, after you've paid your dues, something called convergence can happen, where all of the skills that you accumulated, right, begin to focus on one outcome. All right, so I've got some more questions for you. Let's start with this. How much money did you make when you started out way back when down in Southern California?
Geez, I believe it was just over $5 an hour.
In what year?
1989.
89, okay. As a first quarter electrical apprentice.
And that was pre-apprenticeship program.
Pre-apprenticeship.
Excuse me.
Okay.
In Southern California, you didn't have to be at the time, in an accredited program. Someone could just hire you on.
Brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law hired me on as a helper. wiring houses.
Okay.
And so I was just that.
And then you moved over into an accredited apprenticeship program.
Then an opportunity came up for the union apprenticeship. And I applied.
And you jumped up to how much?
$733.
That was a 50% pay raise, just like that.
Big jump.
Yeah.
And I had a young family at the time. And the increments that you jump up when your re-rates in an accredited program like that.
After a certain amount of time at a certain level, you get a pay raise along with more, getting closer to your journeyman.
Correct. You start out as a percentage. It's been so long now that I don't recall what percentage that was.
Right.
But I think it was 6 months I had a re-rate, and then there's set re-rates throughout your apprenticeship program.
Okay. So do you remember what you were making when did you journey out? You journeyed out down there?
Here. Up here.
Okay, you journeyed out up here.
Correct.
Okay, do you remember what the journey rate would have been down there?
I don't recall.
Okay.
It's been so long, and having never reached that point.
Right, it didn't imprint.
I left early. It was a 4-year program, and I left at about 3.5 years to move up here to help family.
Okay, so in the rearview mirror, was that accredited program a good thing for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was. It taught me a lot.
So you would advise young people that if they can get into an accredited program, you're likely to get a better education starting out.
I think it's paramount. Yeah. That,
too easy to get pigeonholed in some little backwater and not get a well-rounded education.
You don't get that broad range. You're right.
Yeah.
Whether there's stuff in my apprenticeship program, not a lot, but there's some stuff that I to this day I really haven't used or touched on.
Yeah.
Small percentage.
But it's in there.
It's in here, and when it does come up, whatever it is. It's there, like you said, but most of it, even if it's theory, which is the big thing I think in the program, where you don't get, or you might miss out on.
Carpenter, right? Carpenter, welder, blacksmith, logger. But from the sidelines, I have been aware that there are different types of journeyman credentials in electrical work, and supervisor cards, and it's structured, right? Because it's a life safety thing. Controlling those electrons is dangerous. So what is there besides just being a journeyman, which means being qualified and getting a certain pay rate, and other types of journeyman credentials so you can do other types of work? Is that what that means?
Yeah, some are limited, like there's a limited journeyman license. Well, to back up even further, apprenticeship program, like we talked about, when you turn out or card out, you have to test with the state, at least in Oregon, to test with the state, get your journeyman license that you're going for.
And that's separate from the union, that's with the state?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So there's starting at limited journeyman. And some of these I know some about because I have a general journeyman and I don't have the other licenses.
Sure.
But from what I know, limited electrician, like limited residential, they can work on residential, but not some of the commercial jobs, industrial projects. They're just that, they're limited,
right?
What they can do. Not saying it's a bad thing. Some the residentials are their world and they like it and it's a great world to work in.
It's got to be done and it pays.
But you are just that, you're limited. And it's not as, I don't think as many hours maybe are needed or to get your license. And there's certain tiers, like we're saying.
Yeah.
So then there's signal journeyman or low voltage.
Oh.
And they can do run communication wire, but they cannot do line voltage.
Ethernet, phone lines, that sort of thing.
Correct. Okay. But they're not licensed to do line voltage.
Has to come through a transformer before they can work on it, more or less.
Yeah. Yes. And so that's where the general journeyman or someone that works on the line voltage comes in.
Okay.
We have to come do that part of it.
Okay.
For them. And then general journeyman, which that's what I'm licensed, or I have been my whole career, the general journeyman. And I can work residential, industrial, commercial. The voltage limitations. I'm not a lineman.
Okay.
There's that, which I don't know a whole lot about that world. I work with them.
But that's another electrical qualification, lineman.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, I know little about it. I work with them, but I haven't had to do anything. So I don't know everything about that. But yes, you're right. There's these certain and pay rate goes with those tiers as well.
So in general, what would you advise a young person to think about pursuing? Have you got one thing to point at, or in general, what would you recommend?
I may be biased, but the general journeyman, which I think is most well-rounded.
Don't stop short of that.
Yeah, that's my suggestion. Yeah, because I can do with my license the other ones I just said.
Right.
They're encompassed in what I can work on signal stuff. I can run those wires. I can terminate them.
Yeah.
I can wire a house, I can terminate, do all that.
Right. And it was because of that credential that you've got this job now that is sort of the synthesis of all of these things, and it's perfect for you because
It
of
is.
that?
And back to what you said, or we talked about things early in my career that we studied in school that I didn't use. Low voltage terminations and signal wiring, fire alarm systems.
Yeah.
Those I learned about in school, and I learned theory about it, but just in the shop I was in and the position I was in, I didn't
need it.
I didn't do a lot of that. Guys in the field may have, as times changed and it became more prevalent.
Sure.
They did that. I'd oversee it, but I didn't do hands-on.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of theory. I knew how to maybe figure how to install it or the rough in for a takeoff.
Yeah.
But in the position now, like you're saying, it is more encompassing for where I'm working. I work for a utility.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not a power company utility. Well, we have our own power company. I work for the tribal government.
Yes.
So I can work now. I can work on that on high voltage, higher voltage underneath their canopy. It's different than the state. It's this whole thing, right? Sure. But back to I work on fire alarm systems now.
Wow.
And I had to fall back on what I learned, and I had to relearn it physically.
So there's a huge lesson here that there's no such thing as too much knowledge, right? And there's no such thing as paying your dues to acquire that knowledge while you're young. I mean, that's the only time you're going to have to do this, right? You don't have you wouldn't have had time to go back and learn that from scratch now. You had to produce. Wow.
A lot tougher.
Okay, that's great.
I can build on that. I was able to build on that. And then the ever-changing electrical field, the theory and all that doesn't change.
Theory doesn't change. Facts are facts,
so,
right?
Now I'm run a lot of Cat 6, doing terminations, Cat 6 communication cable, internet, run fiber optic now.
We've got that in this old shop, actually. Is that crazy?
And that's something.
Yeah.
But yes, so I guess back to the initial question, my suggestion, to repeat myself, would be the general journeyman.
Okay.
I believe it's more encompassing.
Yeah. Overshoot, baby. Don't undershoot.
Yeah.
Cool.
Don't limit yourself.
All right. So let's dive. I'm going to press just a little harder. So we talked about that you started out at $5 in Southern California 36 years ago. Now you're not in Southern California anymore. Southern Oregon is Appalachia of the West. Okay. Things are lower here. Okay. Are you comfortable telling the people what you're making now or in round terms?
No. I just going up just over $40 an hour.
Just over $40. Yeah. That's a pretty good rate, man. That's a living wage.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah, you should be. And I know that there are other aspects to the job that you have that make it even better. So that's a win. So you see, 20 years from now, people might watch this video and that won't sound like much, but I'll tell you, in Southern Oregon, just over $40 is a good job around here. It brings some comfort and it reduces stress, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. So if there's one thing I've learned about construction, is that compensation is wildly variable, even in specific areas. I mean, a guy needs to find the best job that he can, or live in a place where the pay is better if he can. And young people think that 2 years is such a long time. But from the time you start, in general terms, how long would you say it would be before a young person is making something that is more than they would have made if they would have stayed at a job that was not as qualified as an electrician? How long until it begins to be a good job?
I would say maybe 2 to 3 years where they see a substantial jump because of the wages that we can make, and the percentage they would make in an accredited program, which is all I really know about.
Yes.
I did, and I think it's the same nowadays.
Sounds about right.
So I think a couple of years, but it goes pretty fast. I mean, it seems scary because you're starting at this wage.
And you're not paying tuition at the time.
Right.
You're not putting yourself up in a dorm with no money coming in.
You're working. You're right. You're working a 40-hour minimum job, and you're going to school.
And you're being paid, and the other benefits may start to accrue depending on where you work. Union, non-union, big strong outfit, little struggling outfit. But 2 or 3 years, 4 for sure, it begins to be a real job.
Yes.
Not bad.
No, it doesn't.
And it goes by quick, kids. Quicker than you will believe. All right, another question. What do you enjoy most about life as an electrician?
Not being in an office. No, I say that, and we just talked about a little bit ago, I was in one for 18, not all the time, a lot of the time. And I did enjoy that, don't get me wrong. And there's certain aspects, and that's just, I guess, a question for me. I can't speak for everybody. I like the variety. Maybe that's a better term. I like the variety of it. of this job.
Yeah, because an electrician can find himself doing anything.
Yes.
I mean, you can be in a ditch putting in conduit, crumbing the ditch, you can be pulling wire, you can be up on a ladder, you can be on a man lift, or you can be making up a panel and running low voltage, right? Fussy.
There's so many, and I still to this day bring pictures home to my wife, Nancy, who's been with me since prior to me getting in a trade. And I show off pictures to her of, new things I'm doing, and I still get excited about it.
Yeah.
And the variety, like I said, is exciting.
That's worth a lot. It's a spice of life, after all.
It is,
right?
Because you don't know. And then in the ever-changing world now, we just talk about me learning new things, whether it's things that have been around I never did, or just new things.
They're just plain new.
This whole LED world, I mean, it's insane, the jumps that they've made recently, and I get excited about it. As weird as it sounds, I mean, I dig it.
No, that's cool. Variety, that's good. All right, now the 180-degree opposed question to that is, what is your least favorite aspect of being an electrician? What jobs have you just hated? In the morning you had to force yourself out of the door to go to the job.
That would, I guess, attic crawls or basement crawls, which aren't, there is some of that commercial, a lot of it in residential.
Yeah.
In retro work or troubleshooting.
Let's explain this. I mean, I know what you're talking about, but these guys may not. An attic crawl is when you go up, you find the trap door that gets you up above the sheetrock into the attic over a house where there's trusses or rafters, and it's full of insulation and dust. And if it's 85 degrees outside, it's 100 degrees in the attic. And if it's 100 degrees outside, it's 140, and it's miserable.
And wasps love to live there.
Wasps? No good.
And you can lose tools in the insulation, which I'm missing.
Maybe that's what happened today. We'll talk about that.
It is what happened, but I guess that would be it. I guess my least would be those. It's a necessity.
Okay, let's elaborate on basement crawls. You're getting into a crawl space. Don't think about a nice clean basement. Think about you're crawling underneath the foundation. You got about that much room, and it's mud. And by the way, there's been stray cats under there for, I don't know, maybe 10 years, and you've got to rope that baby.
Yes.
Okay, that's not a good day.
It's quick as possible to get in and out. And I got to say that's the exception. It's not like I'm doing that every day, but when it does come up, it's not my favorite, but then it's a good motivator as well.
Yeah.
You get in and it helps you do the hardest stuff first.
Yeah.
And I do that even when I'm above ground or above, when I'm roping a house, I do the same thing. I try to do wiring a house. Yeah. Do the same thing, do the toughest jobs first. At least I do.
Yeah.
Crawling is one of them. I get it out of the way because I hate it.
Describe the two personality types. A personality type that thrives as an electrician and a personality type that just can't make it.
Well, speaking from recent experience that I've seen as far as apprentices getting into the program. And where I was working, there's an apprentice that was given the opportunity to get into the program, and it was a great opportunity.
How old?
19.
19, okay.
Same age that I started in the trade.
Okay,
I was 19.
all right.
His heart wasn't in it.
Heart wasn't in it.
To learn, there's a school involved that we talked about. There's a lot of dedication to it. I mean, you can't just willy-nilly and make it and do well.
So you got to have some focus. You got to have some determination. What about the ability to be taught?
That's another, to retain what you're being taught, to not take a lot of stuff personal. If someone's repeating yourself or telling you, it's what we do as a journeyman, or anyone should do as a journeyman. Instructing, no matter what the trade is.
You got to be teachable.
You got to be teachable, and you got to take instruction well and not take it. I'm not talking about bashing someone, just good instruction.
That's right. Even if it has a point on it, you got to be able to take that.
To take that and constructive criticism when you're doing something. It's not that you're being looked down upon. It's just, I can see you're doing it wrong. How about doing it this way, or try this? This or that.
And by the way, that's a vital life skill in electrical work or anything else, is the teachability aspect, right?
It is.
So there's an example of somebody that just couldn't hang with it.
Right.
They just couldn't now. But you have another apprentice going right now, a young woman who's got every positive characteristic for this.
She does. The contrast to that, she, as far as listening well, the ability to learn, to want to learn, to go to school, as should, looking at it, at her future and where this is going to be. And we've had this discussion, she and I, and she, young baby, this and that, which, and doing all the stuff away
and she's
from work.
Motivated by this.
And motivated. And And working with where I work, there's 6 journeymen in our shop, and she's worked with every one of them, and does well and retains. And there's a lot of different personalities there. And for my point is that, you know, she'll work well with everybody, and I just see her going far with that. And it's like I said, it's the opposite of other stuff I've seen. And everyone likes working with her because of her attitude. And it snowballs in a good way.
So I hope you heard that, and I hope that you are self-aware enough to be able to look in a little bit and say, which of these personality types describes me? And if you don't happen to be the type that can be taught, you can learn to be taught, right? I mean, people can soften up, and at least we hope so. All right, so we just talked about some of the soft skills, right? Some of the things that enable you to engage with the people around you and to be on the job and on task. You're a creative guy. Now, so these people are gonna see some of the evidence of your photography creativity, and I've seen the evidence in the immaculate job that you do in panels and that sort of thing. So you like to make things, right?
I do.
How much of a characteristic for success as an electrician is that, would you say?
I would say the desire to take pride in what you're doing, and to have it not only for yourself, but for other people to see your creation, which I run in conduit. I'll have the same mindset as my artwork. Because I think it is artwork. I was admiring conduit work yesterday of one of the guys that worked for us while I was waiting for something in our shop, or looking at the conduit, and it is a work of art. I mean, they take the time to do it, and to do it right.
Boom, square, plumb, and true.
Correct. And I've seen the opposite of that, not necessarily in this shop, but being in the trade this long, where there's no care taken. And they just throw it in, and it shows, and it's ugly.
So as a consumer of electrical work, you can tell as a contractor or a homeowner, when you walk up, if it looks good, you've got your confidence that it's actually not going to burn your house down goes up. I mean, like when you make up a panel, boom, 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 the wires bend and it goes in, it dies in square to the landing, and the wires stripped a similar length on all of them. And think, whew, okay, I know this is going to pass an inspection. Can a person learn that, or do they have to be born with that?
I think they can learn it. Just in my experience, because I'm working with apprentices or journeymen that were under my watch, I guess.
Tutelage.
Thank you.
Okay.
With that, you know, it's all in being able to accept someone instructing you or teaching you, like you said, and not beating you up, just saying you'll go far or you'll see. And I've done that with apprentices and journeymen alike, whether like making a panel up, for instance. You know, it just throwing stuff in there, not only for the inspector. I mean, it may pass inspection, it may not look real nice, but the code says the electrical work be done in a neat and workmanlike manner. That's actually in the code book. And I love that it is. But for the person installing it, the homeowner looking at it, the inspector looking at it, he's not going to look 4 times at the panel. Comes in, they start to know your work. I've dealt with that too. They know how deep they need to look at it. And
did you hear that? Just a second. What he just said is, if an inspector comes in and looks at your work and it's neat and workmanlike, he doesn't have to pick it apart, because he's comfortable assuming after a while that it's good down to the details. If the big pieces are good, he has some confidence that the details are good also after a while. Is that about right?
That's a real thing. And it goes a long ways in the mutual respect between the inspector and installer, the electrician, because they know you're not trying to pull something. They deal with that all the time, whether it be homeowners or electricians in the trade, or electricians in the trade.
Air quotes, electricians.
Just saying, there's a lot of layers to that. And back to the artwork, I do take pride in the panel, and my panels look the same in a new installation. You know, existing are a little tougher because you're trying to work with what's there.
You're limited by what's there.
But even with that, I'm anal about it, the way my wires are. I open a panel up, and I know if I've been in there, even if it's been years.
You can see your fingerprints.
I do little things that may be weird to someone else, but you know, the way I land my grounds and neutrals, I have ground, neutral, ground, neutral. I do it without thinking about it. It doesn't take more time, but it's a neat and workmanlike manner. And I put my signature on it, and it helps me. I've gone back to maybe 20 years, living in this area for 30 years, gone back to jobs on a service call, or even the contract I'm working for now, I've gone back to stuff I've done at the other, and maybe not remember them, but I open it up, and then I remember that I did this panel, and it helps me because if I'm troubleshooting something, I know exactly how something was ran or whatever because I did it, and I do stuff the same way. 90% of the stuff I do it the same way, and I teach that to my apprentices.
So what he's talking about that you can think about on your own is, are you consistent, or can you learn to be consistent? And not everything's random, right? But there's order, and that's part of the foundation of craftsmanship generally, order in craftsmanship. So that's awesome. All right, let me get another question to you here. Oh, here's the one. Hazards in electrical work and the physical toll of the life as an electrician.
Boy,
what have you seen? You got a horror story for us, or just a cautionary tale?
I have a couple horror cautionary tales that mostly come from me first getting a trade, which we got to say was a different world.
30 years ago.
Yeah, 30, 36 years ago. That safety maybe not as tight as it should have been, or like I said, just haven't got that far yet. Point being, when I was 19 on a commercial project, the journeyman was getting in to work on some hot gear.
Hot gear means it's electrified while you're working on it. The electrons are moving.
Yes, and it was the room, this is on a big commercial project, and it was a high voltage. It might have been 4,160 volts, which is the standard high voltage. I don't deal with that. Maybe since then I haven't.
4,160 volts.
Yeah, it was a big project. He was getting in to do, for some reason, it couldn't be shut off. I mean, things can always be shut off, but
right.
I believe this was a hospital project.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it is, like I said, I got to stress, it was a different world. And
you were not responsible.
I was not responsible.
Okay.
I was 19, and green as could be.
Let's hear it.
So he's going in to work on this gear, and he had some protective gear on, gloves or, something. I forget exactly. Here's the killer part. He had a rope tied around his waist. And my instruction was, if he gets hung up, to pull him out of this gear.
Pull him off.
Yeah, so when we walked into this room, the hair on my arm stood up because of the flux lines from the electricity.
Kind of static.
So I was pretty scared then. Then they tied this rope on, and I think there was another journeyman in there with me.
Probably a nylon rope or something.
Yeah, they were telling me it's not conductive. You
sure,
pull him out, pull his limp body out.
Just pull him.
And so that put the fear in me as far as electricity rather, because it's invisible.
Yeah.
Most of the time, unless it's darkened. But
yeah.
Stuff looks, bars, bus bars and panels, whether it be big gear, electrical panels, it looks the same whether it's energized or not. Mm-hmm. That's what's scary, and it should scare you.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, if it
scares you, you're going to
willy-nilly about it, you're going to get hit. You got to treat it as hot all the time, and treat it as energized all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even if you're 99% sure it's not.
Every gun's loaded, man.
That'll
every
get
bus
you.
bar's hot.
So the hazards, that could be one of them. You got to have respect for it. You have to learn that.
So you didn't have to pull his limp body out.
No, back to that. Yes,
okay.
He made it out just fine.
Okay.
And I've heard other stories. Guys, they'll hand someone a 2x4 and they say stand next to him if he gets hung up or caught up in the electricity because your muscles contract if you're grabbing something like that. Then to hit him off with that non-conductive 2x4. So that was back then. Like I said, safety now. And it's great, just the advances. There's so much where I work now, and even where I worked before, we had set training that would come up, whether it be, OSHA stuff with electrical.
Scheduled training, safety training meetings.
Yeah. And and we have, like, working for the employer I do now, a lot more training than I had in the past. Confined space training. Yeah. That's a whole nother thing.
Of that.
Yeah. And all these other, so the advances are great, and my wife likes it because she was, always scared of me going to work.
Yeah.
And I limit my stories to her.
Yeah, smart.
About some of the stuff I do.
Yeah.
So that would be the hazards and costs, like I said, just respect. And
what about wear and tear on your body?
Back to that crawling in crawl spaces and in attics.
So let me throw this out. Mm-hmm. It's not as bad as concrete work. You want to tear your body apart?
Yeah.
Concrete work. Talk to Dustin Furch. But it's bad enough. It's heavy work, and now you're crawling on the attics and you're on your knees. And
my knees, that's it. And some of that I know is with the aforementioned skateboarding. I've been skating since 1978, and I still skateboard. So my knees didn't like that. But I know the trade, not wearing pads when I was crawling in attics, stuff I should have done.
Yeah.
And that's an important point.
It is.
Wear this stuff, whether you feel dorky or not.
Yeah,
You know, I didn't think I needed it. I was bulletproof. I have underneath here 2 hearing aids because I did not wear hearing protection for the majority of my career.
Guilty. Yeah.
And I have pretty severe hearing loss. And that's, you know, so the wear and tear, you don't, but it can be avoided, or the majority of it. Everybody's different.
I mean, we still get old, but we don't have to tear ourselves down.
Yeah, I would not have, I know in my heart, I would not have the knee issues I have. Some lower back, granted, I'm in my mid-50s now, and my hearing loss, if I took precautions. But the wear and tear, you said, if you're not careful or watch yourself.
But yeah, it's not as bad as many other, I mean,
no,
carpenters, framers, concrete guys, their job is all about lifting up heavy things and putting them in place. That's the job. And yours is pulling not so heavy things, bending not so heavy things, and making them up. So that's better.
Yes, it is.
So you can lock down on that. The wear and tear on a body is much less as an electrician than in a lot of other jobs. Stability in employment, travel. How stable has your employment as an electrician been for 36 years?
I have been very fortunate in, I bet if I added it up, the time that I've been off work out of my trade, maybe 6 months in 36 years.
Wow, that's staggering.
That is insane.
That's beautiful.
And traveling with that, I know a lot of guys need to travel or want to travel, whether it be for pay or whatever. I've only had to travel maybe 3 weeks.
Wow.
Which is
so
the
that's
exception.
non-typical.
It is. It's the exception. But
and you moved for work one time, or you didn't move up here for work, you moved and found work?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, that is the exception. But I know guys have been in trade that have been out of work maybe more than I have, but not, they've been pretty steady for guys I've known for 25 years or so.
All the electricians that I've worked with work. They work and work and work. And all the carpenters I've worked with are on and off, on and off. There's
so many aspects of the electrical trade.
Yeah, so many aspects.
Back to the licenses we talked about, but just the broad range, starting at low voltage to in signal work, to now this whole LED world, which kind of falls under our canopy as far as the general journeyman.
Yeah.
But you know, up to a lineman.
Yeah.
Electricity, and it's ever changing, and there's so many aspects of it.
So it is as stable. I mean, there are plenty of white-collar guys who have a lot more downtime than that. That's really good. And you mentioned briefly traveling for work. I assume with electrical, like everything else, if you're willing to travel, you can find more money in other places, but then you have to follow the money, right?
That's the price, I guess.
That's the
you would either pay, you know, if you're a family guy or family lady, you know, whoever's traveling. There's that being away from the family. There's that, but there's single people. That they'll travel the nation, or I say even the world. I bring that up. A journeyman I used to work with, was maybe 20 years ago. I lose track of time. He traveled and went over to Iraq. And this is pretty extreme.
Sure.
But I mean, the wage, I forget exactly what it was, but I mean, it was pretty insane. Granted, that's a war zone.
Sure.
Not that you have to travel to a war zone.
Sure.
But I mean, this thing, you can travel the world depending on whether you're working on, you know, towers or, you know, communication voltage. There's a lot of options.
A lot of options, wide range of pay, wide range of,
Right. I've chosen the one where I'm staying closer to home.
You have the best of all possible worlds.
Oh,
right
it
now.
is. It's wonderful. Yeah.
And maybe we've touched on some of this, but talk to a young person about maybe they don't see themselves as wanting to be working in one place, doing one thing, even if it's electrical. What other career options would there be if you had a general journeyman credential in your pocket? Where else might you find work that would utilize that?
There's working for government entities in the electrical field, whether it be a maintenance electrician. I mean, you can work maintenance electrician and still have your general journeyman.
I see.
And it just, and keep your general journeyman. You test every 3 years. I don't think we talked about that.
Oh, you test every 3 years to keep the license current?
You do.
Okay.
I have to, you can do in-person testing. You can do online, which in today's world, that's, I think, the majority of it.
Sure.
You can do it on your own time. But yes, you do have to get licensed every 3 years,
Okay.
or renew your license. Excuse
Okay.
me.
So I could see maintenance at a university or at a power station or in a hospital or.
Yeah, the government projects like that, and other aspects of that of fields you could get into underneath that canopy, I guess, would be self-employment. Some people are motivated to do that. I've been asked over the years by people when I was going to start my own business or if I wanted to. And for me, I'm happy. I mean, I like to set goals. I do that, but I also have other things going on in my life.
Yeah.
Like you said, and I've seen that to be a business owner, and you know this, as far as how much that takes time.
Yeah, you
and
think you own the
otherwise.
business, but the business actually owns you.
Yeah. So, and for some people, it is obviously it's for them, and they dig it, and they're great at it.
Yeah.
I haven't, me personally, didn't want to do that.
Sure.
But there's that avenue. And other aspects, you can. Some people are inclined to get in teaching.
Oh, like in an apprenticeship program somewhere.
Yes, a lot of times they'll have journeymen teach, let's say, whatever courses.
Okay.
Different levels of journeyman, I'm sure, as well.
Probably in bigger population centers than here, but
I had general journeyman. I had a number of general journeymen in the apprenticeship I was in. We had different classes that we'd go to. I think 3 or 4 instructors, and I was fortunate enough to have general journeymen, or at least electricians, as an instructor. I say fortunate because a lot of people can read out of a book and tell you something, but it's different to convey something they've done or know. It's just different.
you can tell.
Yeah. So there's teaching, there's a retail aspect of it. Gentleman that works at a local retail here, he was an electrician. I'm not sure the capacity, but he was an electrician before, and his knowledge carries over to where I'm up at the counter talking to him, and I'm ordering parts, and he kind of gets a vibe of what I'm doing. He'll suggest to me,
You're speaking the lingo.
yeah, what about this or what about that? So, and it's this whole thing, and I love that relationship, and it's fallen back on his electrical career.
Yeah.
He's maybe, I don't know, 8 or 10 years my senior, but it comes into play there.
He's as old as I am. Wow.
And he still retains it all, just
unbelievable.
like you.
What was your name?
And there's management positions like that I was in earlier in my career. Some people end up in those rather than out crawling around or doing things like that.
And in bigger and bigger outfits. I
There
mean,
is.
The ceiling up there is pretty far up for a big outfit.
And I see ads that pop up a lot in emails that I get, or I see them online, or just hear about them around the nation looking for people, and they advertise in Oregon for people for management jobs, and it's that traveling thing.
Yeah.
But there's that opportunity. There's management positions like that. There's just a broad range.
A lot of ways to go. So we're wrapping this up. If these young people are still listening, they're probably wondering, what tools do I need? I mean, the trades need tools. So talk to these young people and show us, among what you have here, of what the tools ought to be that they would need to have on their first day. And I understand that you left a couple of those tools on your last day where you were at doing some work earlier.
And that's a good lesson, because starting out purchasing tools, it all costs money. And if you're not making that wage that we talked about yet, it's tough to have those tools. So this is a good question and a good lesson to not leave your tools out, because no matter what, I'm typically anal about putting my tools back in a spot, and who knows if I got sidetracked or whatever. But it costs money. So back to that, an 11-in-1 tool is pretty important because it's a lot of tools in one. So you're not buying multiple tools. Square drive tip, Phillips tip, slotted, 5/16 driver, quarter-inch driver.
One tool.
This saves money because it's a lot of tools, and I always have one on me.
And is a good one $20?
I think that range.
Yeah.
It's not out of line. This is a Klein, but a lot of companies make a Milwaukee Ideal.
Yeah.
This is important.
All right, 11-in-1. Got it. What else?
Wire strippers. There's a lot of different flavors of wire strippers. There's some that don't have a nose like this. It's almost like a needle nose.
I see.
These are the type I use because this is, to me, at least 2 tools in one. Once again, on a budget. Or even now. I've been in this long and I still buy these kind.
Okay.
I can use the needle nose part, and has a broad range of the wire sizes. So these are the type I like, but everyone has their own opinion.
First day on the job, you're probably gonna have to strip some wires.
I would say, Home Depot, Lowe's, they carry, these type of strippers.
And you don't have to buy the most expensive one on the shelf for your first day on the job.
Wire stripper's a wire stripper.
Good.
And so Wire strippers, like I said, the 11-1, which will get you far. What else?
Need a hammer.
Hammer?
A hammer. Yeah.
You know, we don't need, you see framing hammers.
Right.
A bunch of other different types of hammers. I say this is not an electrician hammer. This is about what I need. I mean, I don't need anything much bigger. We don't do a lot of framing. We'll put blocks in walls in a residential application or commercial with blocks, staples. Although now for stapling Romex and other cables, they got battery operated and they're wonderful. But I would say a hammer because it also looks like you know what you're doing.
Yep. And that's important. That's not nothing. It's not nothing to look like you know what you're doing.
You do. It's a big deal, which is why we're having this discussion, I guess.
I think we ought to see at least one of these bags. You've got a pretty neat storage system that it won't have to be stocked like yours are stocked, but you got to have some way to move them around. Oh, that's handsome.
This one is minus the few tools that I left on a job somewhere. But this, like you said, you don't have to have a full bag, but in here are strippers, and I keep my testers in here.
First day, you don't need testers.
You don't need a tester, I would say, for the first day. Back to that question, if you have some kind of bag to carry.
Or a 5-gallon bucket?
I've used that in the past. You know, something to keep your tools in because otherwise they scatter all over and it's money you're throwing away.
Yeah, so what's that Milwaukee bag down there?
My employer, it all depends on who you work for, supplies me with my own at my job. Same with all my hand tools.
Oh.
So I guess back to the employer thing, who I work for, I don't have one personal tool at work.
Wow. Okay.
But I am tooled up more than I have everything I need.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's a good job. If you find somebody that'll buy you tools, work for them.
As far as the hourly wage and the benefits, like I said, I may make less than others in the state, at least in the Oregon area, but I'm not buying my own hand tools.
Yeah.
You know, you get into these other benefits.
You got a truck to drive.
Service truck. I'm provided with everything I need.
Yeah.
But back to the others showing up. When I first started in trade, I was given a secondhand. It was a Makita, 9.6 volt, and it did not do. I did more than anything else.
It was a marvel at the time, and now
during
it's
the day. Yeah. So this one, like I said, is my personal. I purchased this at Home Depot, and it was pretty reasonable. You find them on sale. The batteries, a lot of times when you buy them by themselves, are more expensive than the tools themselves.
Yeah.
If you can get a good deal on it, which they do.
Sure.
And that's where I bought this set.
So you talked about the impact of looking like you're serious. Would it be for an electrician, for you, like it was for me, the sooner you can start getting the next level of tools, the sooner you were going to get a raise, or the sooner you were going to get more responsibility and more respect just having the tools?
Every paycheck when I first started at 19, I would buy a tool.
Did you hear that? Every paycheck.
Whether it's a pair of channel locks, strippers, something, or I'd talk to the journeyman, or I'd see what I needed that I didn't have on the job. Yeah. And you just pay, even if no one told you, ask.
Yeah.
Or if you see something you need, and it's not that expensive to buy a tool.
$20 at a time or whatever.
$20 time, and then you start filling your bag up, and it's not just to buy stuff. It's stuff you need, and they see the incentive. You're serious about this.
Yep.
And asking questions too. There's that old thing, and the only dumb question is one you don't ask.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent,
yes, it is.
And ask your journeyman. And I love it when someone will ask me a valid question, or they want to know something, and to pass on the experience.
Yep.
Stuff I've learned, whether to save them money
Somebody
or grief.
that wants to learn.
Yeah, that wants to learn. Back to that. So anyhow, tooling up like that, you do it over time. You don't have to show up on a job with $1,000 worth of tools.
Pliers, screwdriver, stripper,
tape
hammer, tape measure. Gotta have a tape measure.
And a torpedo level.
Torpedo level.
I would suggest that, electrician.
A pencil, a felt tip maybe.
Yep, do that. Those to start, and then, like I said, back to building your tools up, you'll get where you need to be.
So what kind of credibility does a young person have if they bring a broom with them so they can clean up their mess?
Ooh, big.
That's a big one.
I've worked with both where leave messes, and it drives me nuts.
Oh, clean up. Yeah. Electricians are notorious. You read the comment section. You can't be an electrician. You cleaned up your mess.
And I am quite particular about that, at least me, and I've seen both sides, I'm sure, in every trade.
Yeah.
to leave it better than it looked when I got there.
Yeah, amen.
It sounds funny. It goes a long way with customers. You know, I've gotten calls being in management and otherwise where my guys do that, and I get calls when they don't do that.
Yeah.
I've gotten calls where your guy left a mess and they are unhappy, and I have to talk them.
Yeah.
But I've gotten the other calls where they are just thrilled, and those are wonderful calls to get. And it goes a long way with management or just your coworkers.
It goes a long way with management and coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kevin, it has been, for me, about 26-year pleasure. Thanks for all the ways you've helped me, all the good work you've done for me, both in the context of Wadco Construction and right here around my own place, man. You've bailed me out over and over again. Knowing a good electrician is a life skill you got to have. You got to be able to find and know and treat like solid gold a good electrician. So if you're an electrician, there have been times when you've been screaming at the screen, hey, don't forget, hey, what about? So if there's something that we left out of this interview that a young person ought to know, put it in the comment section, because the comment section on this channel is a gold mine. I'll just say that. And the next thing is, if you're a young person that's not interested in being an electrician, put in the comment section what trades you would like to know about, because there's a lot of them, and we're going to get all of them on here to have the same sort of conversation about what the reality of life in the trades is like. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.